two of which occurred yesterday. And most of what I entered yesterday were renewing orders that I'd already entered, but I'll go over some of the changes. And it's been important to me to make sure that my orders are understood, and so I've been glad to have conversations with lawyers across the state, and also that they're practical. I know that what we greatly reduced the activity in our courts with some exceptions initially, and of course, as of June the 1st, we are expanding the access to our courts. And that's meant a whole lot of things for our courts. And so it has been important to me, and I know it's important to you to understand what the orders mean, and that's why I am here and glad to answer any questions you might have. And the whole purpose really has been this. It's been important to try to keep people as safe as possible, you and your clients, the public, court officials, as well as handle as much as we possibly could as safely as we possibly have been able to do that. If you would like to see the orders, they can all be found at nccourts.gov/COVID-19. And so for filing due dates, they all have been extended to July 31st. The filings due pursuant to the statutes of limitation or repose have been extended until July 31st. Filings in civil matters that were previously extended to June the 1st were indeed due by June the 1st. And so there were no extensions allowed for those. There are filings for notices of appeal that have been covered by my orders as well as the orders of the Supreme Court, and those have been extended to the end of June, which will be today. And the intention going forward is to make sure that as of June the 1st, we're expanding access to our courts, but that we are not reaching pre-pandemic levels. We should not have crowded areas in our courthouses or in our courtrooms. Courtrooms should be marked, and sanitation for the courthouses should be heightened, especially in high-touch areas. PPE have been provided, but we will make sure that even more are provided. We're excited about the fact that we will be able to provide PPE for court officials, for lawyers, and for the public. And so please stay tuned and you will hear more about that. And there should be, your courtroom should be marked to allow for social distancing. And everybody's interested in knowing what will happen with jury trials. You all know that they are all postponed until the end of July, and we're hopeful that the jury trials will be able to be resumed by August. And I know with issuing subpoenas and notices to the Venari and all, it's important to know for sure what's going to happen really at this juncture. And I hope to be able to let you know either this week or next week exactly what's going to happen in terms of whether or not jury trials will go forward in August. The reality is we have to be able to go forward safely. There are some areas that know that they will need to have alternate sites to have jury trials. They know that their courthouses are not large enough to accommodate. We have to make sure that there's social distancing available for the Venari. We don't want the jury to sit shoulder to shoulder. And we've got to realize that often so many in our Venari either are older or have compromised immune systems, and so we don't want to put them in greater risk. So there are other areas, and Mecklenburg may be one of them, that are looking at alternate sites for holding jury trials. Tomorrow is the deadline by which the COVID-19 coordinators should let me know what the plans are about how judicial districts wish to proceed with jury trials. And the COVID-19 task force, which I appointed, led by Chief Judge Jake Corpening from New Hanover and Senior Resident Superior Court Judge Don Bridges from Cleveland County, they've done an amazing job. They've also made some recommendations about how to resume jury trials. We are certainly taking their advice under advisement and working through to determine how best to do that safely. Please know that notary will continue to be waived for depositions and for all documents filed in court, except for wills and conveyances of real estate. We're still encouraging that documents be served by mail. The Rules Advisory Commission has submitted a request to the legislature to change the rules for statewide electronic filing. This law was passed and becomes law, the bill was passed and becomes law on October the 1st. And so I'll continue to extend that emergency directive until that law takes effect. I continue to encourage people to file by mail. Remember that there is a 5 business day grace period for filings by mail. Clerks' offices, of course, are accepting filings, and they may have secured boxes located somewhere outside of their offices to keep down the traffic in their office. And they may also require, clerks of court may also require appointments and limited hours for public access. Evictions and summary judgment hearings have resumed. There are rental arrearage funds available through state and local sources, and you may call 211 for more information there. The CARES Act affidavit is now required in non-payment evictions. This directive was modified when the directive was renewed yesterday, and previously was required in all summary evictions. The clerk has the statute requires that the clerk set the summary judgment hearings within 7 days, and my orders allow for 30 days. As for secure leave, even if you've taken it or taken 2.5 weeks at the beginning of the year, you're credited all of your secure leave for the end of the year, which may be taken between now and December. We realize that the pandemic and the racial unrest have created some challenges for lawyers, and you may need additional secure leave this year, and so you will have it. I've also modified the rule that calendars posted by clerks be distributed within 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks. Clients can sign up for text reminders of court dates. They can pay tickets or request a reduction or dismissal at nccourts.gov/services. And I'm excited about the fact that we have 2 initiatives. The COVID-19 Small Business and Nonprofit Initiative allows for people who have had small businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19 and circumstances to apply for limited free legal assistance around issues of the CARE Act, employment issues, bankruptcy, dissolution, and commercial leases. So if you would like more information about the COVID-19 Small Business Nonprofit Initiative, you may go to ncprobono.org. And I'm also excited to tell you about the Faith and Justice Alliance. We've actually been working on that for over a year, but we're excited about the fact that we have an opportunity to train clerks to be able to hear and identify legal issues and to refer people to lawyers at no cost to them. We're also excited about the fact that there are places of worship across the state that are willing to host legal clinics. And I just think, certainly we didn't plan the timing of the unveiling of the alliance in this way, But when you think about sort of the R, the intersection of law and faith and justice is quite powerful, especially for those who have unmet civil legal needs. If you would like more information about the North Carolina Faith and Justice Alliance, please go to ncfaithandjusticealliance.org. And that's if you'd like to volunteer or if you know of a clergy person or place of worship that might be interested, please send that information in. We are excited about the responses that we received, but we certainly, given how many folks are in great need, we would love to have as many faith partners and lawyers as possible to participate in this. And I'd also like to, I recognize the fact that during these challenging times, I'm aware that you have in Mecklenburg County about 1,800 evictions pending. I understand also that there's a local mediation program underway, and I would encourage lawyers to use the alternative resolution strategies that are being designed. I'd like to thank your clerk, Cheri, for participating in the COVID-19 task force that I mentioned previously. She has been, as you well know, her service, an invaluable member of that task force. I'd like to also recognize RMJJ for the work being done around racial equity in Charlotte, and I know that the co-chairs for that are Clerk Cheri and Clerk and Judge Lee Cross. And I know RMJJ has been active and continues to be active, and I think that's admirable. And I also believe that there are ways in which those efforts can be mimicked around the state, and so I'm excited about all you do. And I want to thank you, Chris, and others who have launched the Justice Access Initiative. I think this is obviously quite timely to create strategies for post-pandemic practice of law and some other. And what we do know is that out of necessity, we created different ways of doing things, and we know that out of those innovations, we know that we can do something better. And so I'm excited about the ways that you all have also recognized that there's something to resist to permanent change. So I'm so grateful to you, Chris, for your leadership, all the members of the bar, for all the ways in which you have led and met the challenges which face Mecklenburg County. And I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chief Justice. Let me pick up where you left off on the Justice Access Initiative, and just say that my successor, who is on this call, Heath Gilbert, who officially steps into his position tomorrow, that's an initiative of his, and he has, I think, again, showed great leadership as you have in trying to figure out how we're going to navigate the court systems and our profession going forward. And so we look forward to the work of that group and appreciate your support of those efforts as well. I only have a couple questions that I've received, but I'll relay them, and then if we have others pop up, folks can send them to me in the chat feature. The first series relates to mask requirements in the courtroom. And there has been, as has been reported in the Charlotte press, some differences about whether those requirements are applied consistently within courtrooms. And so the questions that have been posed here are, is there, and this is a particular concern maybe for lawyers who are 65 years or older, though it obviously applies to others. If a judge tells a lawyer to take off his or her mask, can the lawyer refuse, given that that could obviously put that lawyer at odds with the judge? Will the Supreme Court order the judges to allow lawyers and others to wear masks? And judges, do they have the flexibility to decide if masks are required in their courtroom? That's kind of the theme that this person submitted, and I'll let you just address those if you can, please.
Judges, you have the flexibility to determine whether or not masks are required in their court rooms or not. I have not ordered mandatory masks in court in the very same way that I've allowed for flexibility for local courts to enter their own administrative orders. It's been my intention for my orders to be broad enough for that to happen, but for those orders to be consistent with mine, I have not mandated requirements around masks. I will say this. I know that y'all know that you've had judges, and we've had other judges across the state who have contracted COVID-19. Court staff, we have had 8 courthouses temporarily closed at some juncture. Those around those who tested positive have had to test as well. And there's obviously anxiety around those who have been in contact and then they're awaiting their own results and they're tested and have to quarantine. And in shutting down courthouses and courtrooms and court facilities, in the ways that we're trying to be up and running and safe, all of that sets everything back. And then, of course, we just don't want people sick. I am deeply distressed that there are folks who are sick. I will say this about whether or not masks should be required. They should be worn. We don't know a whole lot about COVID-19. We know whatever we know. We don't know what we don't know. What we do know is that the numbers are going up, and we're hearing from the CDC that masks are the best way to prohibit transmission of this disease. The other thing that we know is that there are, whether it's lawyers, judges, members of the public, coming to court, whether they are over 65 or not, there are a lot of folks who are 12 who have compromised immune systems. And I'm concerned that if lawyers or others are expected to give details about their medical conditions to justify wearing a mask, that we run afoul of HIPAA. And so I think all court officials should offer grace and appreciate the fact that everybody's doing the very best that they can and want to be in court to the extent that they can. I also encourage for all of us to continue to use virtual hearings as much as practical. We should not be back at the pre-pandemic levels, and virtual hearings in most parts of the state have worked out well. And that's one of the things we will, I'm sure, continue post-pandemic. So we just have to be careful. This disease has struck our court communities across the state in some pretty difficult and devastating ways. And so my purpose initially from the first order entered on effective March the 16th to the one that I entered yesterday has been to keep people safely paramount.
Thank you. Could you repeat what documents are still required to be notarized when filed?
Wills and real estate.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Can you provide a brief update on the technology initiatives, particularly related to e-filing across our courts?
Well, we are still, using MS-DOS systems in 2020, which is not at all where we need to be. I think all of you, I hope, know that we are really excited about the eCourts or integrated case management system, which is coming along. It's amazing that even in spite of this pandemic, we've not at all slowed the progress around laying the groundwork for eCourts. Certainly, if we had eCourts now, we would have been in a very different posture. But we are excited about where we are. We have tried to provide as many laptops as possible across the state for court officials. And we are excited about the fact that e-filing will go forward based on the legislation that's passed. Obviously, we'll have to wait to see what the specifics are and the rules that will be created around that. But it's super exciting. I mean, we should have been there a long time ago. I think our business courts serve as a wonderful model for where we should be technologically, and a whole host of other ways, frankly. And so we should all be really excited about that. The first counties that will have e-courts are Wake, Harnett, Johnston, and Lee, and then in the next phase will be Mecklenburg.
Well, I think safely speak for all of us. We're very excited about about that coming, and look forward to that. Has there been any consideration of, you mentioned that there were obviously some counties where the courthouses are not, set up to be able to accommodate this distancing. Has the court considered identifying larger venues in locations such as that, or other counties, frankly, where jury trials could be held in a safe manner?
That's exactly what's happening now. These districts are working now to identify other locations. Some are looking at civic auditoriums. Some are looking at school auditoriums or gymnasiums. Of course, there are a host of security issues around holding jury trials off-site. Certainly, if there's a party or witness who is incarcerated, and a whole lot of logistical issues around that. And so districts are working through that, and certainly ASC will be as helpful because it's just quite an undertaking. So we definitely want to be helpful in that today.
Then there's a question about whether there's, for the recent law school graduates with respect to the bar exam, are there any, what's the latest on that, or any accommodations for those folks who are going to be sitting for that?
I know that this is a very high stress period of time. The bar is stressful anyway, and to be in the midst of a pandemic is certainly very stressful for all law graduates. I do believe that there's a little bit of misinformation out there. There are many who believe that masks will not be required during the bar exam, and masks are required when entering the bar exam, when at the registration table, in other common areas, when leaving, but masks will not be required while actually taking the exam. And the test takers will be socially distanced, and that's kind of where we are. The Board of Law Examiners has had a whole lot of considerations, and we've certainly been in touch with them. We certainly want to make sure, and we're keeping abreast of developments, that everybody is as safe as possible during the administration of the exam. It's interesting, we've heard a cadre of opinions around whether or not the exam should or should not be administered. There's some folks who, of course, are thinking about opportunities that might be missed in their career if they don't sit for the exam in July. And then there are others who are concerned about the administration of the bar in July. So we've heard lots of input and appreciate it, and trust that the Board of Law Examiners is doing as best they can to be safe. And as I mentioned, we are in touch with them, and I think I've got a staff person who's on with them right now.
Great. I've only got one other question that's been submitted, so this is the last call. If anybody, while I'm asking this, if you've got anything else for the Chief Justice, send it to me on the chat feature, and I'll try to get it in, and we'll give you time to do that during this last Q&A. And that is, what is the best way, if for lawyers who, either through their own kind of anecdotal experience in trying to practice and operate within these the directives and the orders, what is the best mechanism for submitting feedback, if you will, to help guide you and the judicial branch in how in how to pivot or react to these to this environment with hopefully constructive suggestions based on experience with the different interactions with the court and proceedings? How do you recommend that folks offer that in a way that would be helpful?
I will say this, lawyers are advocates, right? And I promise you, I'm receiving so much feedback. But really, that's why these conversations are important to me, and that's why I've been willing to have them since March. We've been having conversations with lawyers because it is important for me to understand what's practical, what's not practical, what the hurdles are. And I've received a lot of feedback. But you also may go to nccourts.gov and you may submit a recommendation to the task force. They've been great about taking this seriously, and they always receive.
Terrific. Nothing else came in during that final Q&A, and so seeing nothing else, I would just, on behalf of the Mecklenburg County Bar, like to extend our thanks and gratitude to you, Madam Chief Justice, for your service and your leadership, and for reaching out and connecting with the bars like you are today. And we're all kind of blazing this path together, but we appreciate your efforts in that regard on behalf of not only our practicing lawyers, but on behalf of the citizens of North Carolina.
Well, thank you, Chris. I certainly appreciate each of you. I congratulate Keith on his resumption of the helm of the Mecklenburg County Bar. And I just want to, again, say thank you to each of you for all the ways that you have been of service, for all the ways that you have stepped up and had to answer really a higher calling. And I just know that as long as we are committed to working through these challenges together, we will be better on the other side. So thank you all so much for everything you do.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
Thank you all for joining.